Hello everyone, welcome to the fourth outline of this course, which is working with data. So this video is part 1. Let's get an overview of this outline. In this lecture, you will learn how to manipulate and transform data using the Dplr package in R. This includes creating new variables, renaming variables, and reordering observations to make the data easier to work with. So let's see what are the learning objectives of this video. The objectives of this lecture are to describe what the Dplr package in R is used for. Next, we will see how we can apply common Dplr functions to manipulate data in R. So what is Dplr? A brief introduction involves Dplr is a tool for manipulation in R. Provides a consistent set of verbs for common data manipulation tasks, which we are going to see later in this outline. It's built to work with data frames and also has the ability to work with external databases. It's inspired by the Dplr but improved with C++ computation and faster performance. Dplr offers the ability to manage and query data natively in a relational database, returning only query results. Now, what are the benefits of Dplr package? Following are the benefits of Dplr package in R programming language. Dplr package in R provides functions or verbs for common data manipulation tasks such as filtering rows, selecting columns, reordering rows, adding new columns, and summarizing data. It also contains a useful function for performing split apply combine tasks. It also makes data manipulation quicker and easier by limiting choices and providing simple functions for common tasks. In the last, we can see it speeds up computation with valuable backends and reduces waiting time for the computer. Let's move forward. Now the question is how to install this Dplr package in RStudio. You can install Dplr by the following given steps. To install Dplr, you can either install the entire Tidyverse package or just Dplr. Don't worry, we will talk about Tidyverse package in the later videos, but for now you have to focus only on just Dplr. There are two ways to add a new R package: install directly from Cran or downloading and installing manually. Let's move forward. To install directly from Cran, use the Install.Packages function and specify the package name. So the syntax is in front of you. You just have to say install.packages, then the package name, which can be Tidyverse, which will download the whole Tidyverse and other packages as well. But we will just download Dplr for now. Let's do it. Alright, so here in the RStudio, I will say install.packages. Then I will write down the name of the package, such as Dplr, and then run it. Now you can see here in the console that the package is being downloaded. So the package has been successfully downloaded. Let's move back to slides. Now you can also install a package manually. First of all, you have to download the package as a .zip file and use the Install.Packages function with the file name and path. The syntax is as follows: install.packages, then you provide the path of the zip file, then you say repos equals to null and type equals to source, which are additional parameters. More information and a list of available packages can be found on the Cran packages website, so you can also visit it. Now, so far you know how to install a package in RStudio. Let's move forward. Next, we have functions in Dplr. Dplr package provides various functions for data manipulation. Two basic functions are select and rename. So select function allows for selection of specific columns. Rename allows for renaming of columns. But before using these functions, first of all, we need a data frame or table to perform operations on. Let's move to RStudio. I will download a data frame by saying, first of all, library, and here I will say downloader. I have loaded a package in RStudio which is downloader. Then I will say URL, and now here I will provide the URL, which is actually the path of the file which I want to download. Let's paste it. All right. So now I will say file name, and let's say I want this file to be downloaded with the name of mam sleep, which actually represents mammal sleep .csv. And then I will say if the file does not exist in my local system, then you can download the file and take this URL and take this file name to download it. Let's run it. All right, so now your file has been downloaded with the name of mamsleep.csv. So now here I will say data, and inside this variable, I will read this data frame by using the function of read.csv, and here I will say mamsleep.csv. All right, and then I will say head of data, which is actually my data frame. Let's say data1, and now let's run it. So here you can see that your dataset has been loaded in the RStudio so that we can perform operations on it. Now your data1 can also be seen here. Now in the practical life, you don't always download the dataset. You already have your dataset downloaded in your local system. Let's say if you want to read a dataset from your local system, first of all, you have to set the working directory for RStudio, and you can say it by saying set wd, and here you provide the path. For instance, I want my working directory to be the disk of D, and inside the folder of data size R. Let's run it. All right, so I have declared this as a working directory, and you can see here that inside this working directory data size R, I have a dataset, let's say msleep, and I want to read this dataset. So I'll say msleep, and I will say read.csv because I'm going to read the CSV file. And here the name of this file is msleep.csv, so you just pass the name, and in the next line I will say head and msleep, and let's run it. See, so this is how you can actually load a dataset in your RStudio. There are two ways which we have discussed. The first one is by downloading the dataset, and the second one is by reading the dataset if it's already present in your working directory. Now let's move forward. Following are some characteristics of select function. The select function in Dplr is used to select specific columns from a data frame. First argument is the data frame, followed by the names of the columns to keep. Can be used to quickly narrow down a large dataset to a useful subset based on variable names. Can also rename variables using a concise mini language. The syntax is as follows. You just have to use the select function, then you pass the dataset name, and the dot represents the variables or columns you want to select. Let's see how to use the select function. Now you can see here that in your dataset there are some columns like name, genus, var, order. There are also columns such as sleep cycle, awake, brain weight, body weight. So these columns contains the information about the sleeping pattern of mammals. Let's say I load the package of Dplr, which I have already installed above here. And after loading the Dplr package, let's say I want to select the name column from my msleep data frame. So I will say select, and then I will pass the name of the dataset, which is msleep, and then I say select only name. So you can see here that the name column has been selected. Now let's say I want to select multiple columns, such as I want the name of the mammal and its var. So I will say select, then I will pass the data set, which is msleep, and here I will use the combine function. I say select name and var. So you can see here that your name and var have been selected. Now, for instance, this time I want to select my multiple columns. Let's say I want the columns from name until the sleep REM. Let's see how we can do it. That's quite simple. First of all, you provide the dataset name as usual. Then you use the range or column operator. You say, show me the columns from name to sleep REM. All right. You can see that your columns from name to sleep REM have been selected. Now let's move forward. I say head and sleep. All right. This time I want to select all of the columns except the column of conservation. So I will say select, and here I will pass the name of the dataset, which is msleep. And here I will use the subtraction sign, and I will say show me all of the columns except conservation. Let's run it. Oops, I made a little mistake. Well, unfortunately, I wrote the spelling of the column name wrong, so it's conservation. All right, so you can see here that all of the columns, such as sleep cycle, brain weight, body weight, awake, and others as well, have been selected. But this time, the column of conservation was not selected. Let's move forward. So you have seen how to use the simple select function. Some additional options to select columns based on a specific criteria include ends with. So this is actually a helper function. You can select columns that end with a character string. You can also use the contain function that select columns that contain a specific character string. Next you have match. It selects columns that match a regular expression. One of select columns names that are from a group of names. So let's see how these helper functions work. Let's say, once again, I say head and sleep and see the columns I have. So this time I want to select the column names that ends with the word of weight. So WT represents weight. I say head, and then I say select, and I say select the data from sleep data frame, and select the columns that ends with the word of WT. So you can see here that the body weight and the brain weight have been selected. Let's see. This time I want to select the columns that starts with the word of sleep. So I will say head and select the data from the dataset of sleep, and select the columns that starts with sleep. So let's run it. Now you can see here that the columns with the keyword of sleep have been selected. Now let's use one more helping function. I want to select the columns that contains the word of EEP. Head and select sleep and contains EEP. Alright, so you have some columns such as sleep total, sleep REM, and sleep cycle that contains this word EEP. Alright. Next we have rename function. Following are some characteristics of rename function. The rename function in Dplr allows for changing the names of specific columns in a data frame. It can also be used in conjunction with the select function to choose variables and use their names as a reference. The syntax is quite simple. You just have to use the rename function, then pass the data frame, and then the variable name you want to change. Let's implement. For instance, I had my dataset sleep, and inside this dataset, I want to change the name of the column order. So I will say head, and then I will use the rename function. And inside this rename function, I want to change the name of order. So before order, what name I want to give will be written on the left side. So let's say I want the new name to be type. Let's run it. Well, I just forgot to pass the name of the dataset, which is sleep. So now it will work fine. Now you can see here that the order column has been changed with the name of type. Let's say I want to change another column. So I will say rename and change the column name of sleep data frame, and what column I want to change is name, and what will be the new name will be written on the left side. So I have decided to change the name to names. Let's run it. Now you can see here that the name has been changed to names. So this is how your rename function works. Let's get back to slides. So this is the end of today's video. Your homework now is to use the Dplr select function for column selection, then utilize Dplr's helper functions for data manipulation tasks. Use Dplr's rename function to rename variables or columns in the dataset. Now here I have placed the link of the dataset. You can access the dataset using this given link to practice. Now good luck, see you next time.